Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Pereira. With Narendra Modi as the prime ministerial candidate, the BJP-led NDA had registered an emphatic win over the Congress-led UPA in the 2014 Lok Sabha elections on May 16th. As the right-wing government completes 3 years in power at the centre, it does face challenges, particularly on the job creation and Pakistan policy fronts. However, on the political front, the Modi government is going strong. In fact, no other Prime Minister after Jawaharlal Nehru would have enjoyed such political atmosphere than Narendra Modi after completing 3 years of rule, a situation where there is neither any resistance in the ruling dispensation nor any potent leader or party to throw a challenge to it. Even Indira Gandhi, who is touted as one of the most successful Prime Ministers, or Rajiv Gandhi, who had won the 1984 Lok Sabha elections with 3/4 majority, was perhaps not as formidable after 3 years on the chair as Narendra Modi is. On the NDA government's 3rd anniversary, we will take a look at the hits and misses over the last 3 years. Joining me on the big picture today are SK Jindal, Chairman, ASSOCHAM Investment and Capital Markets; Gopal Krishna Agarwal, National Spokesperson of the BJP; Mohammad Ali Khan, Spokesperson of the Congress; and Parsa Venkateshwar Rao Jr., Senior Journalist. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Mr. Jindal, I'd like to begin with you, of course, and talk about the economy. Over the last 3 years, how do you think the government has fared as far as the economy is concerned?
The crux is, I have been in business for last 43 years. Last 3 years, what I have seen, I have never seen earlier years like this. From the beginning itself, when he took over the country, I found that confidence was coming back with his thought process, with his vision, with his policies, and with his performance earlier as a chief minister. And it proved all through true, in spite of there have been very many sayings that nothing will happen and nothing can happen here and this will be also another failure or something. But somehow I had faith, and I have always been very, very appreciative of what he has been doing. Whatever policies he has done, he has given to the nation till now, I am unable to find any fault. They are all very well structured because they are basically they are in the interest of all the 125 crore people, and especially in the interest of the person at the fag end of the line. With his interest in mind, he cannot go wrong. This is what I am seeing.
But the opposition has time and again said that the government is anti-farmer, the government is anti-poor, the schemes have not reflected well for the poor and the farmers of the country.
Opposition is opposition, and that is their job. But that doesn't deter him or the people who are doing right. It doesn't deter them at all. Things slowly, when they are saying so many things which are untrue, slowly you will find they are vanishing. Opposition is vanishing. Finally, it is truth which prevails. And you can see after 3 years, opposition initially was very strong. Now they are diminishing, and now you hardly find any. So they also lose their existence because they are not true, what they are saying. Had they been true, they would have overpowered by now. But now you see, as truth prevails, similarly he is prevailing and the country is growing. These kind of conditions, these kind of macros, these kind of economic policies and these kind of environment I have never seen before these 3 years.
Sure. I'm going to take the point that you're making forward with our independent journalists on the panel here today. Parsa, the point that Jindal is making about, how the opposition was far more stronger in 2014, and clearly the schemes that the government has taken up over the last 3 years have helped them to come to this position now, is what he's suggesting.
I would suggest that we should take not 3 years cumulatively, but we should take the first year, second year, and the third year. I think the first year and the second year, the government indulged in policy pyrotechnics. They have announced a lot of schemes, well-meaning schemes, popular schemes, which tried to grab the imagination of the people, and they did. I mean, it was high on symbolism, it was high on rhetoric. But in the third year, I find there is a certain amount of sobriety on the part of the government. They know that mere announcement of programs and movements would not work, that they have to get down to the real work of governance. The second point is that the economy, is doing better than the other economies in the world statistically. Say if China is doing 6.7, you're doing 7.2, and you think that you're doing far better. But
Is it because of government impetus or is it because of something else?
no, it is just going on its own momentum. As a matter of fact, I think the government has not been able to do much with the economy which it wanted to do, and it has tried to do, but not because a lack of trying. And it's not the fault of this government that the economy is not doing any better, because the world situation is such, the world economy is not taken off, and that's the reason. So this 7.1, 7.2, 7.5 are very, very deceptive. I think we cannot be lulled into complacence saying that we are better than the rest of the world. And I think government has now recognized in its third year that, look, we have to get down and do something. And I think there's a tone of sobriety which is very, very nice compared to the first 2 years of noise.
Okay. Mohammad Ali Khan, taking the point that Parsa Venkateshwar Rao is making forward, the first 2 years were high on pyrotechnics, was high on theatrics, but the third year the government has actually done something, is what Parsa is suggesting. Is it a cause for concern for the Congress? Because, the opposition completely seems to be in the doldrums at the moment.
Well, Frank, before I answer your question, I would first like to respond to what Mr. Jindal was saying. Mr. Jindal is a man of many years of experience, a very learned man. I have looked up to him for some time and followed his work. So it surprises me in no great end when he displays the kind of hero worship, I would say, for our Prime Minister without being at all. I would say that the attack on the opposition is unfounded, and I'll tell you why. You say that Modi has done fantastically well. He brought in this new impetus and suddenly there was amazing sentiment. You're right, there was amazing sentiment at the start of 2014. It petered away. He wasted it. Frank, you said something at the outset. You spoke about how his political popularity is untouched. You're again right. These people have mastered the art of electioneering, but that's all they've done. They're pathetic at administration. Gopal Bhai is here, one of the few people in the BJP who understands the GST. Let me tell you something. Their only legislative achievement, the GST, is a throwback from the Congress days. We congratulate them on it and we supported their passage. But other than that, what else do they have to show for it? Sir, you talk about farmers' rights, sir. I was at the forefront. I had the privilege of working on the land acquisition bill. I was also present when the government moved amendments to it in 2015 to take away the right to consent, to take away the right to carry out a social impact assessment. So forgive me, sir, if I don't share your sentiment that this is a pro-farmer government. Thirdly, look, it seems that the opposition is in disarray. I don't blame you. It seems like that, right? Because suddenly Modi ji is the only voice, he's winning election after election. But that is a very myopic way to look at it, sir. It's a pendulum. And I'm sure you will tell me, because you have far more experience than I do. And this sort of hero worship and adulation, which takes a prime minister away from criticism, is bad.
How long is the pendulum going to swing towards the right? Because like he mentioned, in 2014, of course, there was some semblance as far as the opposition was concerned. 2017, it seems like the opposition is only dwindling.
Well, Frank, let's look at the events of the last few days. Mr. Chidambaram was raided 24 hours ago. Lalu Prasad Yadav had a story done on him by a channel which is pro-government. The members of the opposition are being picked off one by one by one. This is pettiness. We have said at the start of 2014, and we maintain this right now, if you have the slightest bit of evidence, National Herald happened the week before last, triple talaq is suddenly an issue. It's a very big issue, don't get me wrong, Frank, it needs to be resolved. But this government keeps religion on the table. It can only keep religion on the table because it can't deliver on jobs, sir. They promised 2 crore jobs, and when Amit Shah's question about that, क्या कहते हैं वो जुमला था, नहीं दे सकते.
Fair enough. I'm going to take the points that you're making.
This government has delivered, sir. You may love the Prime Minister. We may all love the Prime Minister, but the fact is, he's failed as an administrator.
Okay. All the administrative reforms, Gopal Krishna Agarwal, were administrative reforms of the Congress that the BJP is taking forward. The BJP has not done anything new, is what the Congress spokesperson is suggesting. You're indulging in petty politics, is what the Congress spokesperson is suggesting.
The beauty of the pudding is in eating. If you see on the macroeconomic parameters, India at present is at a very healthy position. Our inflation is under control. Our fiscal deficit is under control. Our foreign exchange reserves are good. Our rate of GDP growth is very high. And major problems with regard to corruptions are under control. The biggest problem in our economy was corruption. The people were not getting the benefits of the economic development, and there was no level playing field for the private sector. That was because of the large scale corruption and policy paralysis in the government. We are happy that by the end of this third year, we have been able to control that menace, that parasite in the economy, and now our macroeconomic parameters are very good. That is, these are factual figures. Anybody can go and check. And one thing I would like to mention is ultimately foreign policy successes are what? It is the result of your economic policies that you follow, how the government performs economically, and see the success that the foreign policy is having. That's because our economy is growing. That's because the world has faith on what we will do, how much reform we will do. And ultimately, you see the result today. Ultimate delivery mechanism for the common man has also been improved. Direct benefit transfer, you see the gas connections, number of people who have got gas connection, the way the farmers are getting benefited from the neem coated urea. Anywhere you see the number of toilets being made, housing has been promised, doubling of farmers' income. You see across, this is what the sentiment are built. Economic sentiments are not built on rhetoric after 3 years. You can build economic sentiment in the first year, but after 3 years, when you analyze the performance of a government, of a prime minister, then you have a concrete data on which you base your policies. And if you talk of Chidambaram, who doesn't know that the Karthik was not involved in these kind of activities? Hawala transactions, that capital gain issues in the capital market, and now they are being investigated. Lalu Yadav is he has been.
So you're saying there's no ulterior motives in any of these raids? The BJP has nothing to do with it, and you're not indulging in petty politics?
No ulterior motive, and it's the purpose what we wanted. We wanted to fight corruption. Nobody is above law, and even the opposition leaders are above law. How can they claim that they cannot be investigated? If there is a challenge to their working style, then their investigation can take place. But ultimately, we are not talking on why Chidambaram is raided or why Lalu Yadav is raided. We are talking on economic performance of our government, which is based on proper economic data that we are showing to the people.
Mohammad Ali Khan, I can see you raising your hand. Let's not politicize the debate. If you want, let's make it substantive and concrete. So go ahead. Yeah.
So three rebuttals to Gopal Bhai I want to make very quickly. Gopal Bhai, you spoke about subsidies, especially LPG subsidies, etc. The CAG report attacks the Prime Minister's claims. It says that, and here I will not embarrass you by giving you numbers, but I will say this simply. The CAG has said that the number of people who have given up LPG subsidies is far lower than what the Prime Minister claims. Number two, Gopal Bhai, you talk about farmers' rights, loan waiver. You guys give a loan waiver in Uttar Pradesh right now. We have seen the largest number of farmer suicides take place over the course of the last 3 years. You were wrapped by the Supreme Court for your treatment of drought victims in Madhya Pradesh, UP and Gujarat. So again, that is a finding of the Supreme Court, an independent Supreme Court. That's two. And finally, Gopal Bhai, I'll say this. Look, I am not suggesting you don't investigate. Please, by all means, investigate. That is your job. You must do that. But you know what worries me? Earlier this year in March, you amended, and this is an area of law I practice. So this is why I was particularly amazed by it. Jindal Sahab must have been too. You took away the right to question why an income tax raid is conducted. You took that right away. You amended the Income Tax Act. You said that I cannot call into question the reason why a raid is conducted. This is tax terrorism, which you promised you would not do. I can't raise it before an authority. Earlier, there was a rich history of judgments to ask, bhai agar aap mere yahan raid kare, mujhe wajah to bataiye. I can't do that anymore. That is the opposite of transparency, Gopal Bhai. That's what I wanted to rebut him on, Mr.
Okay.
No, I just
quick rebuttal and then we'll move on. Very quickly.
I just want to quote that from demonetization, 1 crore new tax assessees have been included. That brings up the transparency in the tax performance. Online registration, online permissions with regard to permissions for licenses, with regard to process of transparency with regard to allocation of coal blocks. All this, there is a big transparency move. That is a big direct benefit transfer is there. We are moving to a digital economy. Ultimately, I think transparency is the main focus of this government. Ease of doing business is also a focus. So the results are showing. You see the electrification of villages. Only 18,000 villages are unelectrified. Now only 4,000 have been left. So you see the number of people who have been allocated the gas connection. So we are moving towards a transparent government,
society and a digital society is what you're saying. Okay. Mr. Jindal, let's talk about some of the misses now. Job creation has been a major problem. You've seen several unemployed youth in this country. Do you believe that the government has failed, at least on that front, as far as job creation is concerned?
I would not call it a failure, but I didn't see as much job creation as I wanted to see. And I am a firm believer that job creation is the ultimate solution which we needed and nothing can replace it. But at the same time, whatever government has already done, it is not too little or something that it cannot be appreciated. Only thing is that there was too much to be done, and job creation, as I look at, will now be their agenda, their preference, their priority to be done now. Though delayed, but it will be definitely.
So that's
in
going to
their
be
program.
the priority for the next 2 years, is what you're
and
saying.
they will not miss on it, because without that we cannot survive.
So where are the jobs going to come from? What are the sectors that we need to concentrate
If
on?
ease of doing business happens, then also it will give boost to jobs. How it will happen? Like interest rates are coming down now. This will boost private investment in business also, which hasn't happened yet. But it will happen because businesses, when interest rates are low, they grow. Similarly, when ease of business will happen, businesses will grow, there will be less burden on them and they will come out. And when the businesses will grow, job will get created automatically. Policies on labor policies, that will also be very helpful if they are designed properly in a balanced way. Now they are in favor of labor, but at the same time they are working against labor because people don't want to deal with them because the policies are so much tilted in their favor. If it is balanced, then people would like to engage them and work with them together, because then it will be easy to work with them. So this is what is required, and I'm quite positive that it will happen now, that they will be focusing on job creations, and this thing will get balanced. On the other front, what my learned friend was saying, if he doesn't want to accept truth, none of us can do anything about it. According to him, whatever is written in this is all crap. But it is not crap.
Okay. Mr. Jindal, let's leave it at that. Let's take the discussion forward.
I do say that.
No, 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 no.
I agree with you. Nothing in that is correct. I question the very basis of that, sir.
Let's take the discussion forward. Parsa, now, talking about the misses, clearly something has gone wrong in Kashmir. Is it the doing of the central government? Is it the doing of the state government? Or is it the doing of both the governments? Or the situation is not in the control of the government itself? What's happening really in Kashmir?
I think somewhere there was a little bit of rhetoric on the part of the government's security agencies and security advisors of taking very strong arm action there, which they should have shown greater restraint, and then it would have been contained sort of thing. I think the rhetoric has undone the government's policy, because government didn't have any basic initiative in Kashmir, but Kashmir was coming back to normal. The tourists were coming back, and suddenly, because of this, the killing of Vani, who is nobody, and the security agencies blowing it up, trumpeting it as a great achievement, that was the trigger that really started the thing. And secondly, the so-called strong arm tactics of firing pellets at students and all that, where you needed to show tact and restraint, you let yourself loose, and then the situation became worse. Yes, I think that was a big failure, but it was not intentional. It is lack of experience on the part of the government. And
talking about misses, where do you think that the government has lost the plot over the last 3 years?
I think the economy is the one on which they are not very sure-footed. I think demonetization is a disaster as a policy, as an idea, though they are claiming that.
But they managed to get political mileage out of it.
Yeah, they got the political mileage, but as an economic measure, it's voodoo economics. It doesn't work, and they know it. And the person who is most worried is the chief economic advisor, the economic analysts, and as well as the RBI. They just don't know how to tackle it, and they are hoping it will come back to normal in the course of time, that the liquidity will, the money in the hands of the people will restore itself. Because the expectation that because of demonetization, the bank rates, interest rates will come down. The RBI could not come forward and help the government in that, because the inflationary pressures were still very high, and that is the position they took. And secondly, what has happened in the last 3 years is there has been very weak private investment in the economy. For the last 3 years, it is the public investment that is going on. So the rhetoric that we brought back the market sentiment on the part of the BJP looks rather rhetorical exaggeration, because private investment has not yet come in. And the chief economic advisor to the finance ministry, Arvind Subramaniam, agrees the inflation has come down, but there is weak economic activity.
Sure.
So how do you get out of this trough, out of this lull, you know? And the government seems to be at a loss as to what it can do.
Mr. Agarwal, yeah, you wanted to
You
say
have
something.
mentioned three misses. I think I should just
Yes.
go on that. One thing important is from where the job will come out. You see, we are saying that the people should not depend on government jobs only. There is no scope for creating more jobs. Already administrative machinery is heavily burdened, and there has to be a reduction in that. So a job will have to come from the private investment or industries or through entrepreneurship. Government has focused so much on entrepreneurship development. Now you see startup, stand-up, mudra loan. These will create an ecosystem for entrepreneurship. That's what government is working, and that is the only long-term solution on job creation. If anybody says in the economy that you give government job to the people and that is the job creation, you are not right in the approach. Second thing is, private sector investment has not picked up. Arvind Subramaniam has said this. What is the reason? Because of overcapacity and the lack of demand in the private sector. Private investment will come when there is a sufficient demand in the market. Where this demand will come? It is from the government spending and infrastructure creation has a double-edged work that effect is. One time it creates a better infrastructure. Secondly, it creates demand in the economy, and now you are seeing in the capital market and other sentiment of the private sector that they are saying that demand is picking up. That is one important thing. And on demonetization, I want to say is that it has created without demonetization, GST would not have been a successful implementation process, because you have to, for proper implementation of GST, you have to bring transactions to the banking system. Otherwise, whole GST concept would have failed. Demonetization has helped formal economy. It will not create GDP growth like that, but it will bring informal economy to the formal economy, and that's very important. You see, 1 crore new taxpayers have been added to the GDP.
Yes, that's a point that you made earlier.
If you see all the three, and Kashmir also I want to tell you,
quickly.
there is a difference in the policy. That first time we have seen Kashmir problem, it's not our creation. It is from 1947, and it was created by the policies of earlier government.
Let's not get into that.
Let's not get it. But we are saying that we have to segregate those people indulging in these anti-national activities in the Kashmir. They have to be segregated from the well-meaning common man. They have to be integrated to the mainframe economy, and those people who are acting on those, they have to be curbed with strong hand.
Okay.
So that's our policy. Result will be shown.
Fair enough. Mohammad Ali Khan, I know you want to respond to that and you want to say something to that, but let's move forward and the foreign policy, because that's something that he spoke about earlier. You know, we've got very little time. In half an hour, it's very difficult to really analyze or take stock of the BJP government's performance over the last 3 years. But let's talk about foreign policy. He said that foreign policy has been successful. We've done extremely well as far as dealing with our neighbors and dealing with America and other countries are concerned. What is your thought on that?
Okay. I will just say three things very quickly. First one, foreign policy, and the last one to quickly rebut what Gopal Bhai was saying. Look, on foreign policy, and this is a problem, I think Rao Saab summarized it brilliantly when he said, is sarkar ki aadat ye hai, they make fantastic announcements. They make fantastic announcements and they are unable to live up to them. It's a very rhetoric-driven government. We saw it with the NSD bid. We declared victory prematurely. We said, hum ban gaye sadasya uske, that Special Security Council, etc. And then it didn't happen. We looked ill-prepared. That is the thing that we urge them constantly as the opposition. We say, please take us on board. We are here to help you out. When you look bad on the world stage, we all look bad on the world stage. Kashmir ties into this beautifully. Because in Kashmir, you guys have mishandled the crisis. This Doval doctrine that you speak of is a very confused doctrine. How to differentiate कौन आपके साथ है, कौन आपके खिलाफ है? 19,000 बच्चों ने recruitment ली कश्मीर में आके army में. They're all with you. But you have a carpet bombing strategy. 8 महीने आप लोगों ने curfew लगा दिया. I don't understand. I'm very, very confused by your strategy. You say, कौन इस बात से फर्क रखेगा, Mr. Frank, that talk to the people who support you and alienate the people who are against you. Of course, that's a truism. I agree with you. But the fact is, you've made no effort to reach out. Your doctrine essentially says, close this situation down, and then whatever's left over, walk in and figure it out. You guys, as somebody on Twitter rightly said, you are responsible for two things. You've basically ensured that the rest of the nation now speaks out against Kashmiris, and you've ensured that Hindus and Muslims are basically wary of each other. That is your biggest achievement. Number two, Mr. Frank, I just want to say this very, very quickly. Look, politics hata lete. I think you guys, I've been following the work you guys have been doing on cleaning up bad loans and so on and so
I'm
forth.
running out of time. I'm sorry to interrupt.
I'll take
I'm running
exactly
out of time,
10
but
seconds.
come-
I'll take
yes,
exactly 10
please,
seconds.
Please conclude, sir.
You guys were doing fantastic work on cleaning up bad loans under the former RBI governor. You removed him and replaced him with a man who seems to lack the autonomy that the previous gentleman had. I suggest you go back to that track. That way you'll at least end up leaving a good, strong legacy with regard to strengthening the economy. That's
Okay.
it, Mr.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, the concluding remarks now from all my guests, because I'm running out of time and there's so much that we need to talk about. Mr. Jindal, what can we expect over the next 2 years?
I expect that at the end of these 2 years, we will be in a very good condition as compared to, in spite of this all international mess, what is happening in Europe and US and other places, India is doing very well. And we must compare it with them. We have to compare with our peers, what is happening there. If they would have been doing better, that would have all further supported us to deal with them. But now that they are themselves in mess, they cannot support our economy. So we are doing it on our own demand
Sure.
thing.
Sure.
So I am quite positive about what is we can expect in the next 2 years.
Parsa, is the opposition in disarray? Does the opposition make a comeback over the next 2 years, or what's going to happen?
And the opposition has undone itself, because they lack ideas, they lack energy, which is what the Prime Minister seems to have in plenty, the energy. But I think what I feel is the present government has run out of ideas. It shows marks of fatigue. And in the next 2 years, I think it will just run through the gauntlet, but not do anything great.
Sure. Very quickly, Mr. Agarwal.
Corruption is one thing that we will fight for tooth and nail. That is one thing, and that's what the people want us to be. And then ultimately, we will not sit on our laurels. We have a lot of more agenda to
Sure.
complete. That is thing. And the one thing for the opposition, the more they try to protect Chidambaram and Lalu, they will have big trouble.
Let's leave them out of that. Let's leave Lalu and Chidambaram out of this debate. Mohammad Ali Khan, please close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
I will say to Gopal Bhai that please prosecute wherever you find instances of wrongdoing, regardless of party lines. But at the same time, please take religion off the table. Please remember this is a secular country and focus on the task of nation building, something that you failed at doing over the last 3 years.
Okay, on that note, we'll have to call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. SK Jindal, Gopal Krishna Agarwal, Mohammad Ali Khan and Parsa Venkateshwar Rao Jr. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective. That's all the time we have. Thank you so much for watching. See you again next time.